Hi, this is Involved Innovation YouTube channel. This video we will see about how to create Spring Boot REST API utilizing the AWS serverless services. Here we will use the serverless services like S3 bucket to persist an image, and then we will also utilize the DynamoDB to persist the payload information and also the S3 image URI, and we will be also using SQS queue to send the asynchronous message. We will be utilizing Terraform to deploy the services. So we will be also testing this locally using local stack Docker container, and then we will be also utilizing Spring Boot's test container to test all these services. Here we will see about the agenda we are going to cover in this video. So this is a 3-part video series. In this video we will see about how to create the REST endpoint to persist the image. Here we will get the image and then we will persist this to S3 bucket and then payload data in DynamoDB, and then we will be sending the message to SQS queue. And the second video we will see about how to create a local stack Docker container using the Docker compose file, and then we will be using Terraform to build the resources. Third video we will utilize the test containers and rest assured to create the integration test. And this is the system design which we are going to cover in this video. So here we will be having a REST endpoint. This REST endpoint has a payload plus image as a multi-part file. This image will be persisting that to the S3 bucket, and then we will be getting the image URI where this image is stored in the S3 bucket, and then we will be persisting this image URI plus the payload information which we will be getting in the post request to the Amazon DynamoDB, and then we will be sending this information to SQS queue. So this is what we are going to cover in this particular video. Now we will see a demo of whatever we are going to see in this particular video series. We have the endpoint as localhost 8085, book service API, and then upload, and then we have the image as a multi-part file. So here we can upload the image. We need to have this as image type. By default it will be text. You need to select the file and then click select files. Here I will upload the image, and then here the ISBN and then book name and then the author name. I have provided all these values, and then the book service API is the root level request mapping, and then the upload is the post mapping. So I have defined this as post mapping here. Click send. So now we have successfully persisted the data. So now go to the workbench, refresh, click scan here. Now you should see an entry here, and then you have book, author name, and then the image URL you have here, and then the ISBN also you have here. So now, if you click this, control click, this created a file and you have downloaded this file. So if you change this extension to .jpg, then you will get the file. So now this file is really stored inside the S3 bucket, and you have persisted that URI in the DynamoDB. First we will create a skeleton project. For that I will go to start.spring.io, and here a group com.wizzpath, and then here this is a Maven project and Java version is 17, and then you will name this artifact as book service, and in the dependencies we will add Spring Web, and then we will add Lombok. So the Lombok dependency is used to reduce the boilerplate code. Here this will provide the annotations for getters, setters, constructors. So I will click generate. So now we have created the skeleton project. We have downloaded this book service.zip. We can import this to our IntelliJ. Unzip this book service. So we have unzipped this book service. Open the command prompt here and then enter the command idea space dot. So if you have installed the IntelliJ IDE, and if you have the exe path, if you have placed that in the environment variables, then this command will work. So it created a book service. And here we will go to the pom.xml, click Maven here and click refresh. So now our project built successfully. We have the skeleton, and here we have the dependencies such as Lombok, and then the Spring Boot starter, and then we have the web. This is for the controller. So first we will start by creating the controller. The controller is the starting point, where we will get the input request. So for this I will create a new package named controller. So go inside the main and go inside Java. Here you can able to see com.wizpath.bookservice. Here create a new Java class, and to create a package and then the class in a single shot, so you can put it like controller dot and then the book controller. It will create the controller as a package, and inside the controller this will create book controller Java file. We will make this as a REST controller. So to make this as a REST controller, you need to add this REST controller annotation. If you have marked the request mapping at the class level, then that mapping is applicable to all the methods present inside this book controller. Give this as book service API. Now we will create a post method. To create a post method, you can use @post mapping. So before that I will create a method public, and this is gonna return as the response entity, and this is of type string. The method name is upload. So here we will be getting the file as the request param, and then we will be also getting the ISBN, book name, author name, and then the year published. So now we have defined all the parameters which we require. So first we will add the dependencies for our AWS serverless services. So go to pom.xml, the dependencies for S3, SQS and DynamoDB. So you need to add the dependency management. Now we are downloading the dependencies. Now go back to the application.yaml. We will add configuration record for this AWS services. We have this as application.properties. By default this will be a properties file, but I personally like the YAML structure. So go to refactor and then click rename. Here we will change this to YAML instead of properties. First we will start with the Spring Cloud. So Spring and Cloud and AWS, and here in this AWS we need to set up 3 services. So first I will start with S3. For local we will be utilizing the local stack. So for that I will be utilizing the local stack URI, and then we will also enable path style access enable equal true, and then we will define the SQS, and here the endpoint for this is also same. And now we are done with our SQS. Now we will define DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a AWS proprietary NoSQL database. DynamoDB and endpoint is the same endpoint because we are gonna utilize the local stack. And then we will define the credentials. Access key is test. We will set this up in our Terraform. So for now we will just provide the access key as test, and then the secret key as test as well, and then we will define the region as US East 1. Now we will define the configuration specific to our application. So for this I will create a custom route. I will name this as book service, and here I will define the bucket name and then the queue name. So the bucket name I will define this as book bucket, and then queue name is book queue. So this queue name is the SQS queue name, and then we will define the port. So if we are not defining the port, by default it will take 8080. So now we are done with our basic configuration. So we have defined the Spring Cloud AWS configuration. We have defined S3 configuration, SQS configuration and DynamoDB configuration. In addition to that, we also defined the credentials and region, and we will also define the book service specific configurations. So now go back to the book controller. Now we have all the dependencies in place. Now we will start with the AWS services. First we will start with our S3. So for this I will create a new package named DB S3 storage service. I will mark this with @service annotation, and then I will utilize the S3 template, private final S3 template. So here I am using constructor injection rather than the method injection. For method injection you might have used the auto-void annotation. So in this case auto-void annotation is not preferred. So for this reason I am utilizing constructor injection. To read the values coming from application.yaml, I will create a new class named application properties. I will put this inside the configuration package, and then I will name this class as application properties. and here I will add this annotation at configuration properties, add the prefix, then it will automatically make use of the values defined with that particular prefix. So now if I mark this as a book service prefix, then this will take the values defined with the prefix book service. So the values defined with book service prefix are bucket and queue. So now go back to the application.properties. Here we can make use of the Java record instead of class. So if this is a Java record, you can define this in the parenthesis. So here in the parenthesis I will mention queue and then the bucket. So this values will be coming from the application.yaml. So here if you are defining different application.yaml for different deployments like production deployment, test deployment, and then your local deployment, you can use different application.yaml. Go back to the S3 storage service, private final application properties, and then here we need to create a constructor. This is where the Lambda comes handy. You can use the record args constructor. Now we will create a method named upload. So for this it will give out the response as S3 resource, and then the method name is upload, and the input arguments are multi-part file, and then you provide the string key, and we will cover this inside try catch. So I will be catching this and then I will be throwing this as a runtime exception. We will use the S3 template, return S3 template dot upload. The upload method is coming from the S3 template, and this takes the bucket and then the key and then the input image stream. Here we will be getting the bucket name from application.properties bucket, and then the next one is key, and then you will be getting the image dot get input stream. Next we will create our DynamoDB repository. So to create a DynamoDB repository, I will be recreating a class named DynamoDB repository, and then I will define this as repository. To define this as a repository, I will use @repository annotation, and then I will utilize the DynamoDB template. So the same approach here, instead of using the method level injection, I'm gonna use the constructor level injection, private final Dynamo. We will make use of the Lombok or record args constructor here, and then we will create a method named save. This is to process the information. We will be getting the book object. Now we need to create the object for book, and here in the book model we will define the properties. First I will define private UUID, and then this is ID, private string ISBN, private string book name, private string author name, private int year published, private string image URL. So first we will start with @DynamoDB bean annotation. And then next we will define @data annotation. So @data annotation will create getters and setters. Then we will create @builder annotation. So @builder annotation enables us to use the builder pattern, all args constructor and no args constructor. And then we will also create a toString method. Then we will create a DynamoDB partition key. So here in this case, the DynamoDB partition key is the primary key. There are like two different keys utilized in DynamoDB. One is partition key and then sort key. So here we will be utilizing the partition key. The UUID ID is the partition key. This is a simple getter. We will mark this with the DynamoDB partition key. Now we have created this bean. Now we are good to go to the book DynamoDB repository. So we will get this book. So we will be utilizing the DynamoDB template. For this I will be using DynamoDB.save, and then we will be utilizing the book entity. And we will be also creating another method to find all the book. So public list book find all, return DynamoDB template dot scan all, and then book dot class, and then dot items dot stream to list, and then this list is coming from Java ITIL. Now we have defined the DynamoDB repository. Now we have one service which is pending, which is SQS service. So we'll be creating both message listener and message sender. I will create a new package named messaging, and inside the messaging I will create message sender. This will send message to the SQS queue. So I will mark this without service annotation. We will make use of SQS template, public void publish. This method is used to publish the message. So this takes in two parameters. One is the queue name, and then the second one is object which we need to publish to that particular queue. And then SQS template dot send a consumer function. So to dot queue, and here the queue name is we are getting from the parameters, and then dot payload. So payload is coming in the parameter as well, payload dot toString. We will mark this SQS template as final. If you mark this SQS template as final, then we are making this as constructor injection. So define record args constructor. So now we will create a message listener. So this is to listen to the messages coming to our queue, message listener, and we will mark this with @service annotation. So here we will create the listener, so the private final application properties and application properties, and here we will define a function public void handle message, and this will get in the string message. And to make this function listen to the queue, you need to add SQS listener, and this SQS listener as the queue names you can pass as a list. So here we don't need to use this application.properties. Remove this application.properties. Inside that you can use the value. So to get the value from book service, use $symbol and then book service dot queue. This is what we have defined in our application.yaml. So now we will be listening to this book service queue. Here in this case I just want to log the message, so I am using SLF4j. So that will add the logger for us. Add the SLF4j annotation. The SLF4j annotation is coming from the Lombok as well, so that will enable us to create this log. So now we have created the message listener, message sender, and then we have created book DynamoDB repository S3 storage service, and also we have defined the application.properties to read the application specific configuration coming from the application YAML. And now we go back to the book controller. So here in the book controller we have everything ready. Now we will define all the dependencies here. Private final S3 storage service, S3 storage service, which we have created. Next one is private final, and this is book DynamoDB repository, book DynamoDB repository. Next, private final message sender. So we are gonna utilize only the message sender. Message receiver is just to validate whether we have received the message or not. So here we are gonna use the constructor injection, same like others. So we need to create the constructor. So for that I will be utilizing the record args constructor that will create the constructor for us. Next we need to also define private final application properties and then application properties. Now we have defined all the necessary dependencies for this particular class. We need to define the post mapping. So here in this case, this particular method is going to be a post method. So where you will be posting the book service input, and the book service input have the multi-part file and then other payload information such as ISBN, book name, author name, and year published. And then I will add try and catch here IO exception. If there is an error, we will return a response entity. So here the response entity is string, and then string dot format double quotes, and then here we will create a JSON object, and here the name is error message colon and exception dot get message, and then comma HTTP status dot internal server error. Now this is fine. Let's start with our S3 resource. So S3 resource equivalent to S3 storage service dot upload image, and then the book name. Book name is the key. Next we will get the book object. So book. So we'll use the builder book dot builder dot id is uuid dot random id, and then dot book name. This is book name dot author name dot ISBN dot image URL. So for image URL you will get the S3 resource dot get URL dot toString dot year published dot build. Now we have created this book, and then we will persist this information in book DynamoDB repository. So book DynamoDB repository save, and here we will be passing in book. And then once we have persisted this information in DynamoDB, next we will be using the message sender dot publish, and this gets in the queue name. So this queue name will be coming from application.properties. We'll be utilizing the book, and then once everything is successful, we will return a success message, new response entity string dot format single quotes id %yes, and then comma copy this again. So here instead of id, this is image URL comma book dot get id comma book dot get image URL comma HTTP status dot OK. And now this controller persists this image object inside the S3 bucket. After that, we'll be utilizing that particular image URL, creating the book object, and then we are persisting that to the DynamoDB, and then we will be also publishing this information, the book information, to the SQS queue, and then we will be returning the response. And in the next video, we will create local stack Docker container, and then we will be deploying all the services using Terraform. Thanks for watching this video. For more technical videos, subscribe to this channel.